Welcome to Bicycling's coverage of the 2012 USA Pro Cycling Challenge. I'm Joe Lindsay. I'm here with Frankie Andreu for our big race preview here for Race Radio. Frankie, the course this year is a lot harder in some ways than last year. Last year it was pretty much over after the Vail time trial. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case this year.
No, I mean, you heard the riders in the press conference talk about, like Christian saying, nickel and dime, and it's kind of the way it's going to go. There are some very tough climbs throughout this whole race, and of course everybody's been talking about the altitude. And the big reason they're talking about this is because in Europe, the highest climb you might go over is 2,800 meters, 3,000 meters, which is 9,000 feet.
9,000 feet,
yeah, we're at 10 to 12,000 feet almost the entire time, going over these massive climbs. And also on stages 2, 4, and 6, those are the uphill finishes. I don't know, are those mountaintop finishes or do you call them hill finishes?
I think they're kind of hilltop finishes because they're not going to be as long as any of the real climbs. And I think, like Tommy Danielson said the other day in the press conference, that last year going over Independence Pass, that he felt like maybe guys were a little scared because of how big the climb is. But then when they hit these short climbs, that's where the altitude comes into play. You've got a 2-kilometer climb finish to Crested Butte. You've got about 2 to 3 kilometers at Beaver Creek. Flagstaff is about 6, 7 kilometers long. These climbs are going to be the ones that are going to be kind of decisive for the race, but it's really, you know, it is really a little bit about not making mistakes, not going too deep, because if you do, you're simply not going to be able to recover for the pace that these guys are going on these short climbs.
Exactly. And the longer climbs, you can keep it kind of within your range and not go into that red line. On these final uphill pitches, you go into the red line, you have to respond to attacks, and that's where you're going to get yourself into trouble. And of course, everybody's been talking about Flagstaff, which I think really is going to be the game changer at this year's USA Pro Cycling Challenge.
I would pick 2 places. Flagstaff's going to be one, I think, simply because it's the last shot before the time trial in Denver. The other one is going to be the finish climb at Beaver Creek, and the reason I say that is because really nobody's seen it. It's about 1,000 feet vertical, and it's basically a straight drag on a fairly wide road. So once they get there, there's not going to be a whole lot of tactics. It's just going to be about legs. They've seen Crested Butte, they know what that's like, but Beaver Creek, I think, might catch some of these guys a little bit by surprise.
And you talk about, you know, having the right legs. It's amazing. I mean, this is a 1-week race, but the time commitment for a lot of these riders to come here, a lot of them went a week before Utah, did Utah. In between Utah and USA Pro Cycling Challenge, they spent the whole week here. It's like a 3-week investment in order to get ready, to be able to do something on one day or try to do something overall. So team-wise, there's a huge expense. Time-wise, it's a big expense also for the riders' time in order to be able to get ready for here. And some teams brought a few sprinters. We saw Jake Keogh, one of the favorites who won in Utah. Not a whole lot of sprinting stages here. Maybe tomorrow, maybe. And then otherwise, I think you mentioned Colorado Springs
is pretty much going to be it. So, you know, guys you'd watch there would be guys like Jake Keogh, guys like Moreno Moser from Liquigas. You know, maybe Taylor Phinney potentially. He obviously sprinted pretty well at the Olympics.
Eric Young from Bissell.
Eric Young from Bissell. But yeah, definitely not.
But you have to get to that point to be able to sprint, and that's the hard part. The altitude and the climbs. There's a lot of obstacles before you can actually get that chance to be able to show off your speed.
Well, as you mentioned, obviously the teams have been here for about 2 weeks, and right now these guys are feeling probably the most effects of the altitude. They are the most in the hole because their bodies are really starting to adapt to this. About the middle of the race, that's where they're going to really start to turn around and start to feel good. So what's interesting about that is you might see somebody who has, you know, who has a little bit of a bad day and comes back and is able to win a stage later in the race. But a 1-week stage race, you can't really have any bad days. There's no chance to catch up if you have an off day.
No, it's exactly right. And, you know, guys who are expecting not to have an off day, I think one of the favorites here would be BMC TJ Van Garderen.
For sure.
I also think, and I'm not sure about how these climbs are really going to suit him, because I think there's going to be a huge fight for position on these windy, twisty roads leading to these little punchy climbs, which is Joe Dombrowski.
Yeah, Joe, we talked to him yesterday, and he identified one of the things that he wants to really improve for himself as a racer is pack positioning. He mentioned, you know, when we race here in America on wide roads, it's easier, but in these races, definitely there is going to be a fight for position, but you can definitely see him up front, probably going for a stage win, probably going for the best young rider. But I think for the overall, I think obviously the 2 guys to watch, I would say, are going to be Levi and TJ. There are certainly some other great riders in this race, but when I look at the form that people had in Utah, races like the Olympics and that kind of thing, I see those 2 guys at the front.
Yeah, I think Levi really showed some great legs in Utah, and obviously repeating champion wants to repeat to be able to come back here and win again. He's going to be extremely motivated for that, so definitely one of the favorites. Nibali has talked about wanting to be able to, you know, put a hook into the American podium, but if you're not at altitude, I don't know how, you can't fake it. You can't just sit on. You're not going to be able to kind of wing it and get through this race. It's the guys who have the altitude or who live at altitude who are prepared. And of course, we have a great start here in Durango, and of course Durango, the home of Ned Overend and John Tomac. And anybody who was involved in cycling way back then, I mean, Overend and Tomac had a huge influence, I'm sure, on a lot of the riders that are racing in this race now.
Yeah, Tommy D spoke about when he started riding in Durango and for the college team here, and just like not being able to drop Ned, and even now he still has a problem, even though Ned's about 53 years old, still has a problem. And this town obviously loves cycling. They've made just a huge investment in the race and embraced it. You know, everybody around here, the guys at the coffee shop this morning were wearing cycling jerseys, the whole thing. So it's definitely been a party here for the start so far.
So final time trial. Do you think it's actually going to come down to the final time trial, or is the gap's going to be close enough where the time trial is going to make a difference?
I think the time trial, I think it does come down to the TT finally. I mean, like, these climbs are short, and I think you'll see some gaps in there, but I think with you know, a 15-kilometer time trial dead flat, I think that's going to be really the deciding point, which I believe is, I mean, that's how they built the course. They kind of wanted it to come down to that.
No, and it's a fantastic course in order to keep, you know, 20, 30 seconds between everybody to make that time trial actually mean something in the final day in Denver. But overall, a fantastic design, and of course, some of the top riders here are willing to, you know, they're ready to make their mark. And for a second-year event, we saw how many spectators were out last year.
Crazy.
This year, everybody's expecting even more.
Absolutely. So stay with us all week. We'll have daily wrap-up analysis here for Race Radio. This is Frankie Andreo. I'm Joe Lindsay. And there's a United guy who did a wheelie up the road behind you guys. Yeah. Yeah, probably Forrester.